Hello everybody, welcome to Builder Buy. A little slow getting things going. I've got lots of stuff here that I'm trying to keep an eye on. I want to thank you for joining us. We are streaming in a remote location. Hopefully we'll be back soon to, we will be back soon to our regular location, Chapelwood. A lot of things to cover. I had the video a while ago about us losing Milt. Neat guy. For those of you who didn't know him, you missed a lot. We've got some old videos I'm going to go back through later and see if I can find some clips of Milt, and I'll try to put something together to share with you what we've got. Moving forward, we've got a little bit of homework to take care of. Now, our next live meeting where we're going to have our live audience, and Mel, I want to thank Mel Babb for the information she's shared with us. But Lou Warren had recently had some surgery up on her face, and she's been out of commission for a couple of weeks. I believe she had that done on Tuesday. The reason I'm telling you about this, we need to get a card together and tell her I hope she's getting better. But she's the one that does our broadcast email, so I think she will still be able to do that to let everybody know about the live meeting. So what I'm telling you now, I'll repeat again at the end of this broadcast. And this will probably be brief to kind of show you some things that are going on. But again, our next live meeting, as confirmation for yesterday, will be on 10/4. So let me go to a computer and take a look. 10/4 will be the first Wednesday in October. That's when we'll be able to go back to Chapelwood, and we'll be in the Scout building. Now, they're going to take all their supplies that they're still working for their relief efforts and stack them up around the perimeter of the building, but there'll be room for us, and everything will be set up for us to do what we're going to do. So for all you guys that help, I appreciate it. I appreciate everyone's support and participation, and I hope you enjoy what I'm going to share with you today. So that takes care of our next live meeting. So we've got this week and next week. I've had a chance now to do this 3 times, and every time I do this, I set up differently in the space I'm at here at the house. And it got me to thinking about, for the kind of stuff we do, it would be really interesting if we could, oh wow, Microsoft, y'all just beat all. Trying to update a computer. Not good, not now. Wow. They pick the craziest times to try to do stuff. Anyway, I was thinking about it would be really interesting, some of the things that we do right now, that maybe we could, some stuff that's difficult for us to do in a different location. For example, I thought about some of the stuff with the streaming we're working on. I mentioned to you about the H.264 versus the H.265 compression. About now, we are streaming at 720. When we get back to Chapelwood, we'll be able to stream back at 1080. And the possibility exists for us to stream maybe by the end of the year with a new streaming device. We can stream in 4K. Don't want to do it all the time, but as an experiment to check out the technology, we can upconvert everything we've got from 1080 to 4K and run that through a Ternex AV with another device that'll stream H.265 to our CDN, which happens to be YouTube, and if we choose also Facebook, we could stream in 4K to multiple CDNs simultaneously. And with their cloud service, which would be Teradek, and I've also looked at LiveView, that's out of our price range, but the Teradek is possible. That device is due out at the end of November. We would be able to stream 4K to multiple CDNs in real time. And the possibility of that, to me, is staggering, because when we have to do a remote like we're doing here, and I've only got, that's another interesting question I'll get to in a minute. For those of you that are on Comcast, this may be interesting. We've been streaming 720 because our upload is only 10 megabit. To stream 1080, we would have to go from H.264 to the H.265 codec. Now, if we change our codec so that we can stream with the bandwidth we've got, no CDN that I'm aware of accepts H.265. That's the reason for the cloud solution, like Teradek or LiveView. We would be able to stream to their cloud, and then they in real time convert the H.264 back to H.265. I mean, just the opposite. They take the H.265, down convert it to the H.264, and in real time push it out to the CDN that we're using. So that's one opportunity we're looking at, and that's something else I want to show as the opportunity arises when we need to do a remote broadcast. So that's one issue I was looking at. Another I was looking at was we talked about security cameras. So as it comes up with security cameras, it it's easy to do security cameras. Jerry Lee was working on that, and he said, I'm going to be doing it, but don't ask me about it until I've got it done. And that's been over a year ago. So I've been looking at security cameras again, revisit the issue as each technology we look at, decide what we want to do and can't do with it, and then wait until it progresses and matures. In my opinion, security cameras are kind of like that. We could put up a security camera system that we could do in 1080, and I could show you the system from this location, or if and when Jerry Lee gets his up and running, we could do a remote broadcast from there as well. Okay. From my perspective, a security system should be able to see details. The only way you're going to see details is with a 4K system. So as point number 2, we go from a streaming codec that allows us to better utilize the bandwidth that we have. We're going to look at a security system that can do 4K. Now, the 4K system I looked at, it just happened to look at a situation, again at Costco. They've got 4K cameras, and I've got a link. In fact, it's on the talking points on Build or Buy. Let me bring that up, and I'll go through some of that. I'm going to jump around on some of the talking points, so just bear with me. It's under the heading of Costco, and also under the heading of Lorix Computers. And I believe it's down, I've got about 35 items on here. It's number 25 and number 26. Now, if you look at this situation, number 26, Costco, that's a good system. It's an 8-channel. It's got a 2 terabyte hard drive. But the key to it, if you'll notice, this says these are 4 megapixel cameras. Okay, that's not 4K. If you're going to do 4K, then you're going to be having 8 megapixel cameras, or possibly 12 megapixel cameras. So the only thing in there that I can tell that's 4K is the NVR is 4K capable. So let's go back over to this, and I'll take a look and show you. I'm going to hold down the control key, and we'll click on Costco, and we'll go look at the specs. Now, one thing to think about, if you look at, and it's the reason I have a link up here for the Lorix 4K system, this says 4K 8 megapixel cameras, okay? You know, they always say the devil's in the details. Well, let's look at the Lorix setup at Costco, and this says, this uses the H.265, so you're going to record to your device. I don't know what they do for down converting or allow you to look at it remotely. Any of this stuff, until you actually get it and work with it, it's always in the details. So these are 4 megapixel cameras, and this system does not say that it is 4K. Now, there is a system at Costco that looks similar to this that is 4K for that price. But I've got to go back and double check the specs, because I don't think it is, but I need to check it out. So let's go back over here to the website and take a look at this again. I'm going to go back to Build or Buy, and let's look at the Lorix system, because you're looking at also what's included, what's involved, and just hitting some of the high points. Now, this particular system from Lorix, which is interesting because Lorix was purchased by Fleur, so you'll see Lorix on some stuff, you'll see Fleur on stuff, but the cameras are pretty much the same. But on this particular setup, this is a 4K Ultra HD IP NVR system with 6 outdoor 4K 8 megapixel cameras. 4K 8 megapixel IP cameras. The nice thing about this system runs with power over Ethernet. So you've got one cable that runs to the camera that gives you video, no audio. It gives you video, and it gives you power to that device that will run back to your NVR. And you can plug a network cable into the NVR, so then apparently so you can either see it remotely, or well, there's another piece of software I need to figure out if it interacts with this. I think it does, because this product from Lorix, Fleur, complies with that standard, but it's a piece of software we've talked about in the past, but until I verify it, you know, you can read about this stuff all day long, but until you try it, you don't know it. So let's go back to the website. Now, even though this is 4K 8 megapixel cameras, these cameras are 15 frames per second. And if you look at the price, the list price on this is $2,000. And this says regular $2,500. And there's a coupon, 15% off, free shipping. Still, even on sale, that's an expensive system. Because those cameras are 4K, that's fantastic, but those cameras are only 15 frames. What that means is when you see motion like this, you see my hand waving, Right now we're broadcasting at 30 frames per second. Even though we record our gear at 60, our stream is set up for 30. But you see what we get with the motion. At 15, you'd get motion like this. So the reason I'm pointing this out is if you're looking at doing a security system and you're going to do a 4K system, you need to be looking for 4K cameras that are going to be at least 8 megapixel, but they need to be 30 frames. 15 frames is just not, in my opinion, enough. So we'll revisit this issue time to time. We'll keep up with it. We looked at this stuff a year ago. We're looking at it again, so I'm hoping it won't take so long next time. But when we can see some decided improvement and you get some idea where the price is going, that's when you'll have a true 4K system. So I wanted to share that with you. Let's go back over to the website. So those are the two links for talking points on Build or Buy, number 25 and 26, the Lorex 4K system, and then a Costco Lorex system, which what got me looking was I saw the kit at Costco. So I've got to go back and verify what Costco has in stock because I cannot find what I saw on the shelf on Costco's website. So I've got to reconcile that. So let's go back over to the website. Some other things that are going on. I've got some links up to TVB Europe, and what they are watching is IBC. Okay. I always say if you want to know the technology, follow the trade shows. And right now, the trade show that everybody's doing anything with, as far as video and some audio, is IBC. And IBC 2017 was over with as yesterday. So you'll see a lot of stuff coming out from IBC. I've also got a link up here to B&H. Go back over to the website. 4K video signal guide to give you some ideas of what's going on. That's talking point number 17. And you're going to see a lot of stuff interchangeable because when I look at a 4K system, I'm saying, okay, how does that interface with, say, my TV? How does that interface with our video gear so that I can take that information and make a presentation out of it and show you what's going on and how it works? That's what it's all about to me. And if I go back over to this system at Lorex, I'm going to look at the back of this machine. Business end is what I want to see. And I think I just lost a camera. I did. So if y'all give me just a second, I'm going to have to swap batteries. I didn't know we were going to do that today. I shot with the batteries last week, and I thought I had charged them up, but I think I left those Wasabi batteries in there. That was my mistake. Those Wasabi batteries are not batteries that are ideal to work with. So give me just a second while I change out a battery. It happens. Even with the best of gear. And that's something I wish that we could get some higher capacity batteries, but I don't know that that's possible. Yep, now we're back online. Okay, so sorry about that. So I got a battery to charge up. Got to keep a closer eye on that. So where was I? Okay, we're going to take a look at the back of this Lorex device because I want to see the business end of what's going on. So let's flip over to that. Okay. On the back end of this, I'm going to click on this and bring this up a little bit larger, and I'm going to see if I can magnify. Okay, if you'll notice, these are all power over Ethernet ports. There's a total of 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that means you can plug in 8 cameras. 6 cameras come with the kit. Let's look at the back again. Then you got one port here for the network that you can plug in, and that's what I want to know where that goes and how that sets up. And if you notice, we've also got a VGA and an HDMI. Now, if we were going to interface with this to give a presentation, or if you were going to interface with this to plug into your TV, it's got to go either through the HDMI to your TV or through the VGA. I'm not aware of any TVs anymore that have a VGA port, so that would be like a VGA monitor. Good luck with that. If I want to see that on my big screen TV, then it's going to have to go through the HDMI through one of those ports. And it's got an RS-232 for control. You can also plug in audio for a mic, in and out. I'm not quite sure how that all sets up. And you can also plug in a USB device, I guess for offline storage. Comes with a 2 terabyte drive. And of course, it'll recycle. I'd want to be able to maybe save some of that stuff. But this is the part that I want to know and how we would plug this into our system so we could show you the presentation. It would be plugged in through HDMI, so it would be an input on the switch so we could get it up and show it up on screen. And we could also plug into the TV, so we're sitting here and just change inputs, and voila, we'd see our security system in 4K. But that's what I wanted to take a look at, was the business end of it. The power Ethernet ports, the network port, the VGA, the HDMI. It's got a USB 3.0 plug, an RS-232 control, the HDMI, and you've also got controls. I'd have to look those up, and mic. I'm not quite sure how the mic goes in and out, since these cameras, no audio, but that's something else worth looking into. It's an impressive piece of equipment. Okay, let me get rid of that. Let me zoom out. We'll go back over to Build or Buy. So that's a couple things I wanted to share with you. One, about a streaming device going from H.264 to H.265 to 4K cameras. And the third thing I want to get into with, and there's some other stuff here with technology that's going on as it relates to IBC, as it relates to some of the things that fall over from IBC, as well as some things that AMD is doing. Because the third thing I want to leave you with, and it's something that we, after all, this is Build or Buy, about building another computer. Oh, before I get to the computer, we're going to build a Threadripper. I had email from quite a few people about this, and this really should have been the first thing I told you about. CCleaner. Anybody using CCleaner? CCleaner by Piriform. Piriform got bought by Avast. I didn't know that. So apparently their servers were compromised, and all you got to do is update. Now, for those that might have been compromised, or you're not sure if you've been compromised, if you are running Malwarebytes, and if you were running the Malwarebytes paid version, premium version, it would have caught that. So there's another reason to run Malwarebytes premium that runs real time in the background. But anyway, CCleaner, there's some links up on that when they came out with the new version, and I've got some links up on that. One of them straight into Google about all the people that were infected. In fact, we got a link here from Mel Bad that talks about the infection. 2.2 million, excuse me, 2.27 million users. CCleaner infected. Malware infected a cleaner. So, and I've also got a link up to a Joshua Bell violin. That is another neat piece of software. If you're into audio software, that is an actual violin. It's the Joshua Bell violin. Take a look at it. Beautiful piece. Even if you're not interested in buying the software, you can listen to some of the demos and look at the kind of music you can make on a computer, but it's from a real instrument. So the other talking points about securing a network, and last week I had a link up about 8K from Red Shark. Again, there's some more stuff about 8K that you'll want to pay attention to because it's coming. And Sony has just come out with a camera now that does 8K. And there's a couple of articles here, one from Red Shark about that camera, also one from Red Shark about a new Panasonic 4K camera. But this Sony 8K camera, it's fascinating what it takes to get that all hooked up and how they're doing it. And they think that's affordable, and they're talking about putting all that on. That's a lot of cameras and that's a lot of gear, but 8K. So watch the Olympics and see how it unfolds. So let's go back over the talking points right quick. I mentioned a Threadripper. We're going to build a Threadripper. The question is, building a Threadripper as we go through the specs, leading, bleeding, cutting, and trailing edge technology. I always say, let somebody else bleed. Technology comes at a premium, but if you're trying to accomplish a task, it's all about the end result. And if a Threadripper will help us to accomplish that task faster, from my perspective, if I'm going to be editing video and, of course, audio. And there are some audio tools that make video better that I really should be talking about in the future. One of those is from Isotope RX6. I've got a link up if anybody's interested in Isotope RX6. They are trying to increase their market share. But it's a great product that does a lot of things. There's 3 versions of it. At some point in the future, we may take a look at that program. But as this relates to a Threadripper machine, of the 4 major motherboard manufacturers, I've looked at the Asus. I've sort of looked at the other one that, the company that builds motherboards for Asus. We built on them one time, and I always forget their name. I looked at those boards. Of course, I looked at the Gigabyte. I'm a fan of Gigabyte, always have been. And then, of course, when we built our Ryzen machine, we built the Ryzen, ended up using an MSI board. My reasoning for that was a little odd, but it turned out to be a good thing. Now, we built 2 Ryzen machines. We built one for us, and Lou Warren built a Ryzen machine. I'm glad she did. But for Lou's machine, we used a gigabyte board, and it does everything she needs, and it's been great. But there were some features that were missing with the current BIOS that I got with the MSI. But there were some quirks with the MSI that I did not like being able to set something in the BIOS and it wouldn't automatically reset. You had to ground out the BIOS and start all over. That was very annoying. But I had hot swap. So knowing those roundabout, I'm telling you, I'm probably going to use the board from MSI for the Threadripper machine. And I've got some links up on that. I think I've got one link up here I think I had one link up here onto Amazon. I'll have to take a look here and see. There's been a lot going on. I've also got a link up here through AMD for their Partner Hub, 10 things you didn't know about AMD's latest processors. Something good to read. I got some stuff up here from PTC Optics. And and another product, Digital Anarchy Transcriptive. If you're interested in transcription for video, that's an interesting piece of software. I have some stuff from Digital Anarchy, but I don't have that. Haven't had the need for transcription, but with the video we're doing with Builder Buy and for the stuff behind the scenes, it's a distinct possibility. So you might want to take a look at it. And also at IBC, they outlined some of the technologies they thought were a big deal. I won't share that with you. You'll go read it and find out for yourself. But back over to the links. There's the link on Isotope. Fix and mix with Will Daly using RX6. Best laptops for those interested in laptops. I'm trying to think where that's something else I want to mention to you. The link I've got into Amazon is on the MikroTik RB3011 router. There's a couple of things I want to mention about that, but I'll come back to it. So the link I had, the stuff I had on the Threadripper, I don't have all that done yet, but I will put some preliminary specs together. We'll get it up. Maybe we'll be able to talk about it next week. When we're going to build the machine, I'm not real sure, because when I started, it's like the Ryzen machine. For a while, the motherboard was available, then it was not. Processor was available, but no other motherboards come back available. So as far as leading, bleeding, cutting, and trailing edge technology, I wanted to let a few other people go through this process first. I wanted to give the manufacturers time to get a couple of BIOS updates out there first before I jump in and say I'm going to build a machine, because I need it to work right out the gate for editing video. I've been amazed with how the Ryzen works, but as powerful as the Ryzen is with the Threadripper will double that. And on the surface, that doesn't sound a lot, but when you look at the cores and the threads, wow, to me it's amazing. So I'm eager to build one, and what we'll probably do is build it in real time, which brings me to the third point. There's some things we can do live at Builder Buy at Chapelwood, but because of the time involved, there are some things that are very difficult to do live. Building a Threadripper machine is one of those things that would be difficult to do at the meeting within that time of a couple of hours, considering how long it takes to set up and how long it takes to pack up. So I don't know when I'm going to build the Threadripper, but it's going to be coming. We're going to publish some specs on it about what as Joe would say, if I were going to build, this is what I would use. And when the time comes to build it, I will build it here, and I'll do it live. So we'll all see what it's about at the same time, so we can go through the process. I will tell you right now, because I know they run hot, that's what I've read, but because the difficulty I had with the case on the Threadripper, I was like building a watch. I love the Ryzen machine we built, but because of the integration with the cooler and the case, I need something a little bit simpler, so I'm not going to use a liquid cooler on the Threadripper, even though it runs hot. I'm planning on using a Noctua, because I have another case I'd like to use, which is a Lee & Lee. I love the Lee & Lee cases. And I think that will fit in there nicely, because I need a machine that's easy to transport. And the case that I have, the Ryzen machine right now, it's a bit of a bear. Some of these companies that design some of these products, engineers do this, and you can tell they plan on something sitting where they can look at it. They don't think about those of us, moi included, who maybe take that different locations. For example, the case I've got that in, I never thought I would own that brand of case again, but I like the case. What I don't like about the case is the feet. They're little rubbery stuck-on feet. So when you try to move that case around, that case is made to be sat down and not moved. That doesn't work for me. I need feet that screw on or glue on, something that glides like the Lee & Lee cases where I can move it in and move it out. So I'm going to have to re-engineer that. So I've got a different case, like I said, that's a Lee & Lee that I'm planning right now to put the Threadripper into. So I'll leave that thought with you. So, and as the technology marches forward, we've got RAM, motherboard, and processor. Now, even though that machine, let's just go over here and we'll do a quick look. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Let's just go to like a fresh start. Let's go to Newegg, newegg.com, and I'm going to look up an X399 motherboard, which is a Threadripper. It's an AMD motherboard. ASRock. I don't know why I always forget that name. So I've looked at all four of the boards, and I'm leaning toward an MSI. But I'm going to look up in AMD boards, and I'm going to drill down. It's an STR4 socket, ATX, there's extended. I'm looking for the MSI, of which there are two right now, which says there's only one. And that's the X399 Gaming Pro Carbon AC STR4. That's the board that's interesting. And that's what I mean. They come and go. I don't want to get one till I get both, and I don't want to get those until I'm ready when I'm confident with the BIOS. But I'll let you know. But right now, tentatively, that's what I'm planning on using. So let's go into that board, take a look at some specs. And as we go through these, and like I said, I've got to verify all this good stuff based on what we're looking for in the technology. This is probably the board I'm going to use. This is the MSI X399 Gaming Pro Carbon AC STR4 AMD. It's got 6 SATA. I believe there's 6 or there's 8. 6 gigabit, 24678. There's 8 on there. 2 of them are down there on the on those other tabs, PCI Express, that'll never be used. But anyway, the reason I want to bring this up and show it to you, if you look at the memory slots, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 on each side. That's 8 memory slots. That's a lot of memory. Now, it's been my experience, even when I've pushed the limits on memory, I've never had a machine utilize all the memory. It's needed other things, other resources. So the reason I preface that, I will probably put a nominal amount of memory in this machine. A nominal amount in this machine would be an extraordinary amount in another machine. I'm probably going to put 2 sticks, so that way we stay on the first controller to get maximum speed. And I will probably put 32 gigs, which would be 2 16-gig sticks. To me, that's a lot of memory. That's enough to be comparative with the other machines we build. I know this thing will hold more. That's one of the issues a lot of people have had. Let's go back over to that. Let's go down here to the specs. Good old Threadripper, 128 gigs. Okay, 128 gigs of memory. Of the programs that I have used that could utilize a lot of RAM, Sonic Foundry back in the day, Sonic Foundry Acid Pro was the one application that could utilize a lot of RAM. I never had any other application that utilized that kind of RAM. Sonic Foundry doesn't own that anymore. Acid Pro is now Magic's. And I have not had Magic's, although I have a license for it, multiple licenses for it. I do not currently have it on a machine to test that capability. There are other audio applications that I could also use a lot of RAM like that, where you're streaming sounds in real time, instruments. But for doing video, I think 32 gigs is a good place to be. So that's what I'm planning on doing, two 16-gig sticks. I think 32 gigs will be a good place to start with. Now let's go back over to the specs for just a second. Okay, AMD X399. Let's magnify this so we can see what we're looking at. Talks about the RAM DDR4. So we should be able to go any one of those speeds, and any one of those speeds is going to depend on what gives me the best. Now this says channel support, quad support. Quad support meaning I should have 4 sticks in. So if I rethink that issue, it would be for that performance issue. But right now my plan is still 32 gigs of RAM. So if I don't go with two 16 gig sticks, then we'd break it down to 4/8. But at any rate, it's going to be DDR4. Probably going to use Corsair Vengeance. That's what we've had the most experience with. Down here to the SATA ports, the SATA 6 gigabit, there are 8. Love it. You know, there for a while, we didn't get all of our SATA ports, which was kind of a bummer. I like the hop swap cages. Last week, we tried that USB 3 drive. For those of you on laptops that are backing up, cloning, and imaging with USB 3, 2 hours, man, that sucks. For those of you on the new laptops, if you can utilize the USB 3.1C, better way to go. We'll revisit that issue later and look at some better options for that, whether it's a spinning hard drive, whether it's an M.2 in a case, whether it's an SSD in a case, or whether it's, well, I got some other options I'll share with you later that are also applicable to video. Just keep in mind that the way I do things on a machine, I like to be able to have the quickest access. So with a machine like this, I can put a hot swap bay in there, and I can pop my 4, 6, 8 terabyte drives in and out to move video. Because when you do this kind of stuff at 1080, that's a certain amount of video it takes. But when you start doing 4K, that's a whole lot more video. So you need the capacity and you need the speed. And there are ways to do that internally and externally and still keep your speed. So let's go back over to these specs. 3 M.2. I'm only planning on using one M.2, and I wanted to mention this M.2 because the funny thing about the M.2, even that is changing because, yes, I'm going to use an M.2. Love the speed. Once you've had one, you don't want to go back. And it will probably be an NVMe drive, although I'm not 100%. The reason I mention this is because there are more players with NVMe drives in the market, not just Samsung, which is my preference. There are some other people out there, like not too long ago, there was one from Intel that was one of the best buy deals for the day at Newegg. When I realized it was already over with. But I mention that because I've got to revisit that issue and figure out what's going to give me the speed and the best bang for the buck. It's always about bang for the buck because it's about what you're trying to accomplish and what's it going to cost, how much time is it going to take to get there. Let's go back over to the specs again. It does RAID. It won't be doing that. No onboard video. I'm still not real sure about a video card. I know what I want to use in there, but again, I don't want the video card to overtake what I'm trying to accomplish with the processor. And I've got a dumbed down video card in the Ryzen machine that I had retired and didn't think would ever see the light of day, but it does what I need, and I'm amazed at the performance I'm getting out of the processor, and I know it's just the processor that's doing those videos. So I'm eager to compare and build a Threadripper under those same auspices where I put down a dumbed down video card because I want to see just what the processor's doing on a Threadripper versus a regular Ryzen machine. After building the FX machines, there's no way I'd build another FX machine after building a Ryzen. There's no way. The performance, the resources wouldn't do it. Difference in daylight and dark. Unless I had to. Supports wireless. There's an Intel wireless card in here. It'll give me 802.11 AC. It supports the 2.4 and 5 gigahertz, so it'll get up to 867 megabit. Well, when you're moving lots of volumes of data, it's going to have to be done wired. Wireless, just, you know, until it gets there, is not for me the way to go. Other connectors on here for a water pump. Again, I'm planning on using a Noctua because I need this to fit into a conventional case. That other case was too much of a beast to deal with. Now, as far as power, another thing that I want to mention real quick, I will probably put, not that it's required, but it's not because of the power that's required, it's the amount of power taps. So I want to be sure I get a power supply that has the power taps to accommodate this CPU. From my understanding, it requires 2 8-pin power taps, power supply power taps, power supply to the motherboard. So I want to make sure for the motherboard of the CPU that that's accomplished. So long story short, it's probably going to be an 850 watt power supply. And it will probably be, or it'll definitely be modular. Probably one of the ones we've used in the past, maybe one of the ones that's on the spec sheet now. Could be one of the ones that's been on the spec sheet in the past. It's going to depend on as we look at it, who's got the best bang for the buck at the time, that'll give me the power and performance I need. And right here it has on the specs. You have one 24-pin, which is the main, two 8-pin, which are those that go up by the CPU. Then it's got a 6-pin, and that provides additional power. Now, that additional power for PCI Express by 16, we had that same issue on the Ryzen motherboard that I didn't use because I've only got one video card. I'm not doing two video cards. So this other power tap would be for if you've got two video cards or more in there, which I'm not going to do that. This machine is going to be for rendering video and audio as it relates to video. And this motherboard supports the Ryzen Threadripper processor. Supports 8 DIMMs, 10+3 power phase. The lights, I don't know, doesn't make it run any better. Not into that. So, multi-GPU. And of course it'll be with Windows 10. It's not, I'm not pushing Windows 10. I'm not a fan of it. I don't like some of the things that are going on with Windows 10. But to keep everything compatible, I can get into issues with that. For example, the audio in this thing, if you're doing video with this motherboard, they install a driver, MSI does, called the Nahimic audio. If you're playing games, it may be fine, but if you're doing video and you're trying to edit audio, it sucks. You've either got to turn it off or don't install it. And if you really want to get down nitpicky, you're better off putting in a professional audio interface and not worrying about the audio on that motherboard. Going back to the Ryzen machine, as I was editing video, I was working with some audio and I kept hearing some stuff, and it was like chasing ghosts. I never could get the audio nailed down until I realized that Nahimic audio driver what was causing me grief. So I just shared my 2 cents worth on that. Now, if I were going to put a professional audio interface on a computer, I would use what I'm using right now, which I like, which is the same thing we're using in our system now. It's the same thing I use on the primary machine where I do audio, a Focusrite. And you don't have to get the biggest and the best. Everything Focusrite makes is good. I'm going to go over here to Focusrite's website. Let's just do a quick search. Focusrite, Focusrite. And Focusrite Scarlett would be their USB interfaces. They also make the Sapphire. Let's just go into the Focusrite website and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Now there's a good example. The Focusrite, there's the rack mount unit. We have one of the rack mount units. We also have one of the smaller units. It gives us, I believe it's 4 inputs, 4 mic inputs on the front. Let's go into products. And they do some really amazing things. They're even using Dante audio in some of the higher end products. They do ADAT, so USB or Thunderbolt. So let's stick with USB, and it works off of USB 2. And to give you an example of a professional audio interface, we'll see the range. These are the Scarlett. If you're going to put a pro audio interface on a machine and all you need is the driver, you don't need the biggest. The smallest, which is 2 in, 2 out, would probably do the job. And I wouldn't buy the kit with all the stuff unless you get a really, really good price on it. The Scarlett 2 in, 4 out, the Scarlett 6 in, 6 out, and the Scarlett 18 in, 8 out. Okay. Our first mixer that we got for build or buy, I want to be sure we got one big enough. It was too small. It was this one, the Scarlett 18i8. But as it turned out, that's the one I'm using on a computer to do audio. Now, if you're going to do a professional audio interface, and if you're going to do a Scarlett, a Focusrite mixer, specifically a Scarlett, if you're looking to buy one, buy a brand new one because you're going to buy a brand new one that'll be Generation 2. If you buy a used one, you want to find out if it's Generation 1 or Generation 2. Why? If it's Generation 1, the driver model is different than Generation 2. Will it matter? If you do MIDI, yes, it matters. Not that there's a MIDI plug on there, but because of through USB you can do MIDI. And if you get from some of the tools from one of the companies, if I can think of it off the top of my head, they have a program that is a Moto Bass, the company that has Moto Bass. It would not work with the Scarlett first generation. We had to install that universal MIDI driver before it would work because the driver model is different. So to reiterate, if you're going to get a pro audio interface, I like the Scarlett from Focusrite because it's USB. It'll work on any PC computer. But I would keep it simple and get a Generation 2 by buying a brand new one. So if we look at the least expensive, that'll give you a couple of interfaces, which would be the Scarlett 2 in, 2 out. Let's just go find that. The Focusrite, Focusrite, 2 in, 2 out. Now what I want to do is I want to show you a picture and the reason for going a model above this. Because when you're looking at an audio interface, let me get back over here and show you. When you're looking at an audio interface, this is on Sweetwater, they've got great pictures. We're going to look at the back end, the business end. Okay, on the front, you've got one plug, but it's not a dual plug. That's a solo. Okay, I wouldn't do the solo. It's $100, too far back. What I would look at, we're going to go to B&H. Their pictures are pretty good. Sweetwater has it as well. Okay, this is the second generation. That's the reason why the other one's been discontinued. I'm looking for the picture. I don't. There they are. I want to see the back end of this. Okay. If you're going to get one of these, think about your inputs and outputs. If you notice on the back of this, your line outputs, left and right, are for your speakers. Yeah, designed in England, made in China. Those are 1/4 inch. 1/4 inch as opposed to RCA phono plugs. So in my situation, the speakers I'm using are the Mackie. Mackie makes some great speakers. And I don't remember the model right now, but I size them according to the shelf I have them on. They give a great sound plugged into the mixer I'm using, and they take the 1/4 inch TRS plugs. And I believe these are TRS. Ring tip sleeve. And on the front of this, you got dual, where you can plug a mic or an instrument into them. So if you get one of these interfaces, that would be the lowest I would go. That Pro Audio interface is $150 from anybody you go at it, whether it's B&H, Sweetwater, Zounds, any of those vendors. That'd be my recommendation. Here on B&H's site, they say this is the #1 seller. You can read the reviews, the Q&A. I like the way they set up. The mixer is a little confusing at first, but it will work by default as is without having to do anything strange. If you want to monkey around with it, you can get some amazing results out of it with virtual instruments. But if you just need the audio driver so that you can work with your audio, and you're doing straightforward stuff, this will do the job. But you may have to go into the control panel and tell the control panel, tell Windows, that with everything else going on, you don't want to use analog speakers, which is what it may try to do if they're plugged in. You want to use this audio interface. And sometimes when you plug in something HDMI like a monitor, Windows tries to default to that, and you have to go back and tell it, use this. I tell you that because experience. I'm telling you what I've had to do. Okay, so that's gotten a long way from the Threadripper machine, but that's just something that, one thing leads to something else. Because the whole purpose of this is something that I can use to build a machine with, that I can build video with. I need something that will make the process go much simpler, much faster, much quicker. And it's interesting. On a side note, I've done this now 3 times remotely, and the area I am in, I'm set up in a little bit different. And every time I've done this, I again set up different. As of today, wow, I just lost another battery. As of today, I'm set up differently. So every time I change, I try to make it a little bit better. This space is smaller, but it's better suited. And the reason I'm telling you this is I'm hoping next week, again, Builder by Meets from 1 to 3, I'm hoping to be a little bit closer to being on time. I'm just checking our stream to see how we're doing. If that's you, Tom Tyner, I miss you, and I hope we see you again soon. I'm going to have to figure out some way to get you back out to Chapel Wood so we can see you. And I may give you a bear hug when I see you, so don't hit me. But I want everybody to know at Builder By, I love you guys. I appreciate your support. This is kind of what I wanted to share with you today. I hope I didn't get too long. Batteries ran out on me, so as far as stuff next week, I'm not sure what I'll share with you, but hopefully it'll be something interesting you'll find useful. But remember, we're going to be building a Threadripper machine. And from now on, anytime I have a chance to do a remote broadcast, I'm going to try to do something that we couldn't do up at Chapelwood because of space and time constraints. So because of those constraints, when we get ready to build the Threadripper, I'm going to build it here and I'll build it live, but I'll let you know ahead of time when that's going to happen. But in the meantime, we'll get some specs up. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today, and I appreciate everybody's support. And just remember, if there's somebody out there you love, tell them, give them a bear hug, and as they say, it's not the things you do you regret, it's the things you don't do. So I hope you enjoyed this today and appreciate your support. We look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks for joining us. One person takes me a minute to figure out where I'm at. All right. Thanks for joining us, folks. We'll see you next week.